and Tortora on-site, on location in our Heritage Hill Travel Studios at the AAC Kickoff in Arlington, Texas. And down here in Arlington, Texas, not too far away from where you are in Denton, for the North Texas Mean Green and head coach Eric Morris of the football program. Eric, how are you?
I'm fantastic. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. So bring me into last year's the first year in the American. Now that we have the opportunity at year two, what were the biggest pieces, the learning lessons, so to speak, of the transition last year?
Yeah, we could talk all day about that, but I got notes for days on things we did well and things we didn't do well. And so I think going into year two, I think there's just so much now. There's a little bit of familiarity with the league, with the way it's played, both schematically and personnel side of things. And so, I think there were some adjustments we needed to make on both of those. And so spent a lot of time self-scouting this year, and some of it was personnel-wise. I think we had a stretch where we played the best 4 teams in the conference all consecutive weeks last year. And the biggest thing that I took away from it was we were so much smaller as a program than those 4 teams. So size was a big thing, and we needed to add some bulk up front and then even on the back end, especially on defense for us. And so that was a major emphasis going into recruiting this year was to able to get some guys that were a little bit bigger at the safety and corner position, a little more length on the field, a little bit bigger in the trenches. And I think last year, we were so damn close, and we had 8 one-score games last year. And so obviously we weren't tough enough to pull those victories out, and enough of them. And so you look back at all the one-score games and the opportunities that we had to win the game, whether it's on the offensive side, defensive side. We got to be tough enough, to find ways to win games as opposed to find ways to lose games. And so I think, it's challenging to practice that, but we spent more time in practicing 2-minute drills and 4-minute drills and a little bit more physical throughout the course of the spring. It'll be the same thing going into fall camp. And so, but I think the calming part of this is, although we have a bunch of new faces on this roster, is I think we've improved at a lot of positions. And we were so like we know how close we were last year, so we're not that far off, and we're able to add some things that I think can really push us over the edge this year.
You talked about having a bunch of new faces on this team. We know that the transfer portal has allowed for essentially collegiate free agency. It can be a positive, it can be a negative, right? When you bring in the guys you want, it's great. When you lose some guys that you love having, it's tough. How do you navigate through the portal and still respect the world of the traditional true freshman?
Easier said than done. We're taking big high school classes right now, and so we've taken over 25 the last 2 years, which is the most in Texas. And so we still believe, and we think we're getting a better caliber high school player than what North Texas probably was 5 years ago, because so much of the other schools in Texas are going heavy portal. And so now you have to have time to develop those guys, right? And so I think that you'll see it this year, and then really we'll see it blossom next year. I think we're able to supplement some of those things this year as far as also, we had some attrition on both sides of the ball, so we're able to replace some guys with some guys that have game reps, meaningful game reps. And I think snaps played is such an important piece to evaluating these transfers, more so than where they're coming from. And so we've had great success with Division II players that come that are All-Americans and played thousands of snaps that come in, and they just seem to be a little bit more ready to go out there and compete. And so I don't care where Division II, FCS, Power 5 coming down because they want more playing. We've gotten transfers that kind of hit all those bases, and we've had success with all of them. We've had some guys that couldn't play for us after they transfer. So it's definitely a new artwork of trying to fit these rosters together, and manage it. But it's doable. I think if you take your time, if you're diligent, if you don't just jump into things without knowing why a kid's leaving, I think you can get burned. But I think if you're patient and you do the work and you make the phone calls, I think you can. There's plenty of good football players that come out here and want to compete at a high level.
You talk about a bunch of new faces. When we look at offense, defense, and special teams overall, when we're painting a picture of 2024-25 for this program, who are some of those leaders that you feel like have become an extension of you, either in practice or on the field in a game?
Yeah, the two guys, to start with the two guys that are here today. Ridge Tejada on defense is a guy that's returning, he's a 3-year starter at corner for us. I think he's either 2 or 3 pass breakups away from breaking the all-time record at North Texas. And then Damon Ward, who's really been a number 2 receiver for the last couple years and is primed to have a breakout season. Done a phenomenal job reshaping his body and putting in the work this offseason and has gotten on the same page as Chandler Morris, and bringing Chandler Morris in, at the quarterback position, and a kid that was an instant leader on our team, demands respect. I think super mature. He's been through a bunch of different situations that he's a little bit calloused in a good way. He's tough as nails, and so I think bringing somebody like that into the fold has really helped us kind of throughout the course of this summer really move forward at a more of a rapid pace.
So for you, when you look at this, before we jump into rapid fire, where you as the coach gets to ask me some questions and put me on the hot seat as opposed to you having to answer questions always, looking at the fact that this conference has made such a commitment to the state of Texas. They moved their headquarters from Rhode Island during COVID to Irving, Texas. We're here in Arlington here for the AAC kickoff, and of course there's a bunch of representation, including the Mean Green, for this conference as far as institutions. What does that mean to you to be in a conference called the American, which really is and can be coast to coast, but right here in the center of the country in Texas, they've made a commitment to being in this community, just what that means?
Yeah, I think, the DFW area is obviously booming, and I think it has the resources to support everything they need. I think that, it being a natural hub and having the DFW airport right there is something natural. Call me if you need me. And so, yeah, I mean, it's obviously ideal for us because, we come to these events and I get to sleep in my own bed and wake up and drive 30 miles down the road. But yeah, and I think too, having Army and Navy in the conference is such a cool experience for our kids to be able to go experience those games against the academies, for Army to come to our place this year, and for all the DFW, people that have graduated from the Army, such a storied program with so much history. I think when you add those storylines into it, it makes it even that much better.
And for you, looking at the leadership, last season Mike Aresco, and obviously the commissioner from the beginning before there was a name or a logo, and now Tim Pernetti. What were your takeaways from Mike Aresco and what he's done for this conference, as well as the new leadership of Tim Pernetti?
Yeah, I think Mike did an incredible job for years of really building this brand into a strong brand, and obviously, I think you see the hard work of him in this conference materialize into people jumping ship and going to different conferences because they had so much success, right?
Yeah.
And so it's almost like the transfer portal with kids. It's the same thing with conferences, and they want to go to a conference with maybe a bigger TV contract or what it might be. And so I think you see with UCFs and the Cincinnatis, and that's directly because of the success that they were able to have on and off the field. And so Mike, I think, kind of did a phenomenal job establishing that culture, and they weren't going to back down to anybody, and they weren't afraid to play any of these, powers, groups, whatever you want to call people, and they were going to compete at a high level. Now, I think it's changed just a little bit, just, as far as now you throw in, the changes with the portal and NIL and revenue share, and I think that throws a whole new dynamic into playing players, and it's kind of the haves and have-nots that people think. And so I think we have some ground to make up. I think that getting somebody that thinks outside the box like Tim right now was something that was just a great move by the American. I think just listening to him the couple times I have so far, I think has a unique perspective, whereas, he played college football and it helped shape him, but he has a mind of more of a business savvy mind, in my opinion, and so I think we'll see some really cool and creative things come out of this with his leadership and help kind of move the needle forward.
To jump into rapid fire, you now get to ask me whatever you want, football or life related. So what do you got for me?
All right, who do you have winning the conference this year?
Honestly, it changes. There was a thought of Memphis. There's a thought of UTSA. I think the beauty of this conference and covering it from its institution is that nobody's winning it every year. It just constantly is changing.
Right.
I think that North Texas is a little bit of a sleeper, that you're not going to get the credit that you have from the inside out, from the outside in necessarily to start the season. But I am looking forward to you going beyond what people expect. So I have you circled as that, like, go ahead and count them out type of thing and see what you can do.
I like it. Spider-Man watch. There's got to be a story behind a Spider-Man watch that you're wearing right now.
Yeah, he's been my favorite since I was a kid. My mom used to get me his comics growing up, and I can definitely connect with his character in a lot of ways. I've actually screenwritten what I would do if given the opportunity to be living in that world with Sony Pictures and writing for it. And I was an extra in The Amazing Spider-Man 2 that Andrew Garfield was in, so I actually got to be on set, made it on camera in the chase scene with Paul Giamatti. So there's a lot to it, but in the world that I live in the media, I think now more than ever, with great power comes great responsibility. I think the media has a tremendous amount of power, and I don't know how many of us are being responsible with it, and so I find the importance of needing to do that.
Very cool. Have you got that question today yet?
No.
First time?
Yeah, what's your last one for me?
Last question is best sporting event you've ever been to in your life?
Best sporting event I've ever been to in my life. Oh, man. I would probably say this past season, and I know we're in Texas, so my apologies to the Texas Rangers, but I already infiltrated your base. I'm a Diamondback fan.
Okay.
And bringing my dad to the World Series, getting to go to Game 3 and go to Arizona. We had never been to Arizona. I'd never been that far west, and been a fan since they came in 1998. But being able to go there with my dad, I think I watched him watch the game more than I watched the game. Just looking to my left and seeing my dad there, and like my dad being alive and well, thank God. You know, us being able to celebrate that moment together as father and son. He's always been a baseball fan. I've become a baseball fan. So I think for me, I still have the videos on my phone of us, singing "Take Me Out to the Ball Game," pictures of us, the rally towels and all that stuff. So I think for me, without question, it's being at the World Series with my dad and the entire game thinking to myself, like, we're here. How'd we get here? And so to me, that's been a true blessing.
Cool story.
So with that being said, Coach, North Texas Mean Green, here, make sure you pay attention with them this season, not only in the state of Texas at home, but on the road. And of course, for Eric Morris and the entire team here with North Texas, and with Mr. Mosley, your athletics director, who I'm a big fan of, who brought me to some of the best food in Arlington. I want to thank you for the work that you've done, and I always appreciate your time.
Thank you, sir.
Thank
Appreciate
you.
you.
Thank you.